The UN Security Council Monday rejected a Russia-backed resolution calling for an international independent investigation into the takedown of the Nord Stream gas pipelines last fall. This was Russia's permanent representative to the United Nations in New York on Monday, Vasily Nebenzia, explaining the resolution.
Mr. President, thank you. Today we are being asked to vote on the draft resolution establishing, under the UN Secretary General, an international investigation into the act of sabotage of the gas pipeline Nord Stream in the Baltic Sea in September 2022, proposed by the Russian Federation and co-sponsored by the People's Republic of China and also Belarus, Venezuela, the DPRK, Nicaragua, Syria and Eritrea. We already stated during the February meeting of the Security Council our opinion on this matter, namely that we put forward the initiative because we have serious and very well-founded doubts as to the objectiveness and transparency of national investigations conducted by some European states. They unfortunately have broadly shown they do not intend to cooperate with interested parties, and in particular with our country as one of the worst affected, in order to fully shed light on the circumstances surrounding this crime, which poses a threat to different aspects of international peace and security. Furthermore, these countries are deliberately and consistently trying to mislead the Council. Apparently, Russia was informed of their efforts. I would like once again to draw your attention to our letters of the 13th of March, S/2023/193, and the 24th of March, S/2023/223, with copies in annex of the exchange between Russian foreign representations and relevant bodies with the authorities of Germany, Denmark, and Sweden. It is clear from this correspondence that nothing apart from just empty words are we expecting from these states. Therefore, without an objective and transparent international investigation, the truth will not be uncovered as to what happened. Therefore, Russia openly and constructively is proposing to our colleagues in the Council that they adopt the resolution which instructs the UNSC to make proposals on establishing an international independent commission to conduct a comprehensive, transparent and impartial investigation into what happened. This is particularly important given the emergence of new facts and also the growing number of media versions as to what happened, with differing degrees of absurdity and reliability. At the final stages of the discussion of our draft, the only argument that we've heard from colleagues raising doubts as to the expediency of an international investigation in a nutshell was that first we need to wait for the conclusion of national investigations. I'd like to respond to that, namely that these investigations could go on for years in the same inefficient and untransparent manner, or inefficient. Precious time is being wasted, and there are increasing suspicions that within these investigations, efforts are being made not to shed light on what happened with the acts of sabotage, but rather to hide evidence and to clean up the crime scene. We consider that the Council bears responsibility before the international community for responding to such acts, especially because our initiative in no way limits national investigations. Rather, the text contains a call to ensuring wide-ranging cooperation between member states and the Commission. We trust that it will help to ensure synergies with relevant efforts. Therefore, distinguished colleagues, there is no cause for concern. Furthermore, the recent incident with the discovery in one of the lines of Nord Stream of unidentified item, and also the authorization of the Danish authorities for Nord Stream AG to be involved, it just confirms the need for an international procedure. We doubt that such an authorization even would have been possible if we had not drawn the attention of the international community to the egregious situation regarding national investigations, and if, in order to have such minimal degrees of openness, full international attention needs to be paid to the work of governments, then there is no doubt as to the need for such global efforts. Sir, during the discussions on the resolution, the Russian side acted in a responsible and flexible way, trying to find a way that's acceptable for all states. And the concerns expressed by members of the Council were taken into consideration. We would urge the Council to support this draft. Its adoption would give a clear signal that such acts of sabotage regarding cross-border infrastructure is unacceptable, and the perpetrators must be brought to justice. We are convinced that this meets the interests of all states and the international community as a whole. Thank you very much.
These were the remarks of the Deputy Permanent Representative from the People's Republic of China, Geng Shuang, at the Security Council in New York Monday.
Mr. President,
去年9月，北溪管道发生爆炸
after the
后，
Nord Stream pipeline
包括中国
explosions
在内
in
的许多
September
安理会
last
成
year,
员
many members of the Council, including China, immediately expressed concern about the major negative impact arising therefrom on global energy supply, ecological environment, and shipping security. This vicious act of sabotage affects the security of not only European but also global transnational infrastructure. It bears on the interests and concerns of every country to conduct an objective, impartial, and professional investigation into the incident in order to make the investigation results public as soon as possible and hold the perpetrators accountable. China supports authorizing the UN to set up an international independent investigation commission to investigate the incident. We thank Russia for circulating the relevant draft resolution, taking over a month to organize in-depth consultations amongst members of the Council, and demonstrating a flexible and open attitude by incorporating amendments from China and other members into the draft resolution. China regrets the results of the voting on the draft resolution on the Nord Stream pipeline that just concluded. Mr. President, some members believe that there is no need for the Council to authorize an international investigation, nor that relevant countries are conducting national investigations. In fact, international and national investigations do not contradict one another. An international investigation under the auspices of the United Nations can, on the contrary, play a coordinating role among different national investigations, ensure the completeness and integrity of the chain of custody, and make the investigation findings more authoritative and widely acceptable. Some members opined that conclusions of national investigations should be drawn before international investigations were to be considered. As a matter of fact, it has been more than half a year since the explosions of the Nord Stream pipeline. If an international investigation is to be carried out at all, evidence must be collected in situ the soonest. The process must not drag on, lest it become harder to collect evidence and thus affect the investigation results. Some members advised against making groundless speculations or accusations or predetermining investigation results. In fact, authorizing the UN to launch an international investigation is precisely the best way to respond to speculations and allegations. If the countries concerned welcome with open arms the Security Council's mandate for an international investigation into the Nord Stream explosions, they can at least have some semblance of a clear conscience. If, however, the countries concerned covertly block the Council's authorization of an international investigation, it only raises the suspicion that there might be something hidden behind the scene. Mr. President, granted, Council members have not yet reached an agreement on authorizing an international investigation, but they all have supported finding out the truth and bringing the perpetrators to justice at an early date. China hopes that countries carrying out national investigations will embrace and elevate a sense of urgency, report the progress of their investigations to the Council timely and regularly, and identify and publish their findings at an early date. The Security Council has the responsibility to remain seized of the bombing incident, including by holding regular briefings and taking necessary further actions in an effort to discharge effectively its responsibilities for maintaining international peace and security.
The resolution failed, with 3 voting in favor, Russia, China, and Brazil, and the remaining 12 members abstaining. Russia's permanent representative made these comments following the vote.
Mr. President, I think that after today's vote, suspicion as to who is behind the act of sabotage on the Nord Stream is just obvious. I'd like to remind you of some basic facts. In the eyes of the whole world, the US and its allies has done everything it can to ensure that there is no international investigation of what happened to Nord Stream in September. Initially, Washington publicly at the very highest level threatened undermining the gas pipeline, and then it continued along the same lines. Moreover, the media has contained an enormous amount of speculation and, to put it mildly, of contradictory and absurd versions of who and what did it, despite all the attempts of Russia. Everybody's saying that Russia blew it up, but we have tried to correspond with Denmark, Germany, and Sweden, and you can see that they refused to correspond with us appropriately. I'd just like to make a forecast here. These so-called national investigations, without Russian participation, might last for years. I have a question to the US representative. What in our resolution was so unacceptable, or predetermined rather, as we say, liar, liar, pants on fire, and the US is linking this to Ukraine, but we say that there's no mention whatsoever of Ukraine in the resolution at all. What about the objectiveness of this international investigation? US and other colleagues said that they deny any involvement, and on the other hand, they also want to ensure that there's transparency in impartiality in here. And also, this is something that the US is absolutely denying any involvement in whatsoever. And NATO as well. Well, what can this all state? We don't have to be detectives or analysts to understand that the US and its allies is trying to clear up the evidence, in particular by placing trumped up versions and different absurd ideas, because there are facts that are just not acceptable and suitable for Washington. If the US really wanted to establish the facts and bring the perpetrators to justice, then it would act completely differently. Colleagues, our vote was really a sort of litmus test, but everybody had to decide which path he or she wanted to take, on what world we wanted, one where rules are upheld, or a world where, and in which case we'd need to have punishment, or a world where that's not the case, or a world where there are states that where everything is allowed and they themselves write the rules, despite saying that it's a rules-based order, but they themselves don't bear any responsibility for the most egregious acts. And today's vote quite clearly confirms that our former Western partners believe that they can just do whatever they want and get away with it. The obvious example of this is the ongoing vicious circle of the West in the Council, which means that the Council just is not able to carry out its functions. And so we're going to do all we can to address this, and we do ensure that even more detailed facts will come to light, and all the circumstances surrounding the attack of the Nord Stream pipeline will come to light as well, and that the perpetrators will be brought to justice, because this is unavoidable. Thank you very much.
For KPFK, I'm Don DeBar.